speak verbose, and then we can play the video when it is ready.
I think we could do that because let's not waste time. In the meantime, let the technical team keep it ready. So
Sure,
we will
sir.
start without wasting our time.
Sure, sir. So let us begin this program, and we'll first hear from some of our former colleagues, and then if the video, as and when the video is ready, we'll play that also. I should also like to inform you that Dr. Jograj has sent an email which he wants to be read out. I'll do that at the end of this session. In the first place, it's my pleasure to invite Professor Avdesh Kumar Mishra. Avdesh Kumar Mishra served here as director, and it was during his time the scheme for protection and preservation of endangered languages as well as the Bharatvani project. So both these projects took off during his time, and the institute received a lot of impetus to work on scientific aspects of language. It was during his time that the present list of JROs got recruited, and they started working here. So I pass on the mic to Dr. Avdesh Kumar Mishra with a request to express his views. Over to Professor Avdesh.
Thank you. Namaskar. And once again, I congratulate the CIIL for completing 51 years of its existence. Shall I mute my video? Then bandwidth will be saved. Is that okay, Tariq? Narayan?
This is perfect, sir. Perfect, sir.
Oh,
वीडियो भी रहने दीजिए.
ठीक है, okay, ठीक है. So let me remember a few things. When I joined there, that was kind of post-transitional era. Why I say that? Because previous to me, Professor Sachdeva has been there for a long time, and before him, Professor Yuan Singh was there also for many years. And I call it the CIIL's existence. Why I said that it's transitional, that was transitional era, because I count it from Udayanarayan Singh onwards, that was the transitional phase. And then I entered there, and we saw many things. And before that, we had the former director, Professor D.P. Pattanayak, who was there from the beginning since 1969 or so. And I won't hesitate to say that most of the work that we see today, the foundation for different types of works that CIIL was supposed to do in the beginning, I kind of had an assessment, and I would say that whatever we have out of 100, at least 70 to 75% works were done already by the time Professor D.P. Pattanayak was there. So, okay, something, who got some message from Sanjay Bag. Yeah, so, and then we also saw in CIIL that beginning 2005 or 4, we had many of our the old say employees, including academic and non-academic, they retired, and there was depletion in the staff. The number of staff reduced considerably, and then of course Professor Yuan Singh and Rajesh Sachdeva and S.N. Burman, they kind of supported it as much as they could do. And as someone mentioned, Tariq, that Professor Yuan Singh could bring in so many things, keeping in mind that we didn't have permanent staff. So something was to be done, and then he could do it. And after that, we have grown a lot. Then when I joined, then most of the old senior, say, academic staff members and also non-teaching staff members, they had retired. They were not there, very few. And so one thing that happened during those few years was that we had to concentrate on doing something which was peripheral, I would say, not the items that we had in our agenda for the CIIL in the mandate, that we could not do justice. We lacked on many accounts, for example, doing research in various areas and support our RLCs, and also the languages, the minor languages, the small languages. we could not do much. We had to focus on, say, conducting seminar, workshops, GIA, this, that. But then after that, of course, as Tariq mentioned, that we could manage to get some teaching members like the lecturers and JROs. That gave some impetus, and things have, of course, changed. Giving that background, I would like to mention here that we have the foundations laid for the grammatical studies, grammar, dictionaries, folklore, all these things. As I already mentioned, that 70 to 75% of the work was already done by the time Professor T.P. Pattanayak was there, and also his successors like, say, Annamalai, Owen Call, Francis Ekka, and others. And of course, all the members cooperated with them. That's why they could do it. So the directors are like, in my mind, they are like the engines of the train. We need the wheels and fuel that is provided by the other staff member, academic and non-academic. Without that, the engine cannot run. But the engines were very good all through this time, in spite of certain problems that we had, no teachers, no principals, irregular principals in many of the RLCs. Given that now is the time that we have the foundations laid, and things have improved in past, say, 5 or 6 years in terms of having more staff, academic staff, because I personally feel that CIL is not less than any university or any big institution like NCRT and others. And actually, for Indian languages, as we all know, that it is the only institute that can do justice to the development and works related to various aspects of Indian languages. For Hindi, Sanskrit, English, and others, we have other universities and institutes. And CIL has a big responsibility, which is not small. It's a very big task, and managing that with such a small number of teaching and non-teaching staff is really very, very difficult. And I would commend that the staff, whoever have been there in these years, they saw to it that it doesn't sink, it doesn't go down. Whatever the good work and the foundations were laid by Professor T.P. Pattanayak, say when Kaul, Annamalai, Francis Ekka, and others, Rajesh Sachdeva, of course, Udayan Singh, that has continued, and we saw that during the crisis time, the post-transition phase, the crisis time was very well managed by persons like D.G. Rao and Professor Venkatesh Murthy. Otherwise, the CIL would have sunk, but they are the people who saw to it that it doesn't, if it doesn't do all the works related to languages, which like going to field and collecting materials, preparing grammars and dictionaries and doing other things, but they saw to it that other things are taken care of, and that is not less important. And now that we have projects like SPEL, NTS, NTM, LDCIL, Bharatvani included there, so it is on their shoulders, and they should, as Tariq initially mentioned and Professor Sachdeva added, that we used to have films and other things, and Professor Venkatesh Murthy also suggested this is one of the important aspects that CIL people have to always keep in mind, that we have to connect to the people, because the languages that we have been assigned to take care of, it resides in the people that somehow, because of the dearth of staff there, and also at times we had dearth of finances before, say, 2013-14. Because of that, we suffered a lot. But and that's why we kind of saw a disconnect. It became something like mostly like a university because of for those aspects. So conducting seminar, workshop, those are not the main things. The main thing, the strength of the CIL is, that's why we have lecturers and JRO, RRO. We don't have readers, associate professor and professor like universities. The idea was that whatever research we do, that will be connected to the development of languages, the RLCs, those languages, the smaller and minor languages, and that way we can see that all languages find their places where they should be in different domains. And now, as I can see that in spite of having so many years of CIL, and as I mentioned that after Professor T.P. Pattanayak's time, it slowed down. and we could not say prepare the materials for many of the languages. Very few we could do. We grew like a university. That I think that the present say the teaching and non-teaching staff, they have to keep in mind that our responsibility is bigger, and we have to see that whatever mandate is there for all these projects, the research done, they can themselves do the research. Now there are more people, and that is always connected to the language. It should not be for the personal benefit or just to spend money and show that we have conducted some programs. It should reflect whatever we do in the development and fulfillment of the desires, what the language, the speakers, the speech communities, they want for their languages in terms of education or other kinds of development. Then CIIL will certainly, which is still respected, and it has done a lot of work. But if we could achieve that where our predecessors, they left, whether Professor D.B. Pattanayak or Udayan Singh or Rajesh Sachdeva, Annamalai, Omkarnath Kaul, D.G. Rao, and Venkatesh Murthy. So we go beyond that, and we see to it, we aim for 100%, then only we can succeed in achieving at least 80%, and that is fair enough. So with that, I wish all the best to all the teaching and non-teaching staff, existing ones, and good wishes to all the people who have been connected, the thousands of people in past 51 years. Good wishes to them for completing 51 years and on the occasion of the Foundation Day of CIIL. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Mishra. It was wonderful. You have given a lot of insights. Now I would like to know from my technical team, if they're prepared, you can play the video of Professor UN Singh. Can we play the video now?
Professor Mishra, we have completed 52 years. This is the 53rd
Oh,
foundation.
52, yeah.
52 completed,
acha.
53rd year.
Okay, I missed that. Right, all right. 52, yeah. 51 seemed better, culturally better, 51. No, that's why it stuck, it came from my mind. 51 is a good number, 52 also, sure. Okay.
Dr. Tariq, if they still have issues,
Okay,
let's
so
not waste our time. We move on to the next.
Let us proceed to the next speaker. And as I have mentioned before, this is slightly informal and unstructured program. We do not have a hierarchy in this program. So if you wish to be the speaker, if you would like to speak first, please raise your hand. Otherwise, I will call your names one by one. And with your permission, we will move on to we will listen to you. So
let's listen to Sushila Thomas, one of the ladies.
Okay, it would be a pleasure. Over to Professor Sushila Thomas. Let us listen to her. She has participated in the progress of this institute in various capacities, and her last stint was as a research associate, in fact, senior fellow, as a senior fellow at this institute, and we have had very fruitful interactions. So let us hear Professor Sushila Thomas. Over to you, ma'am. Please unmute yourself first. Ma'am, please click on
unmute.
On left, left hand side bottom. Unmute yourself, please.
On the speaker button, unmute it.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Perfect.
Yeah, good evening. Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Good to see you all after a long time. I was in CIIL from 73, 74 onwards initially as a research scholar. And from 76 onwards, I was a regular employee there. At that time, Dr. D.P. Pattanayak was the director, and me, Professor Rajesh Sachdeva, and Professor Rajeshri Subbaiah, and all, we were in socio-linguistics unit. They were the major units, socio-linguistics unit. Then we had anyway language teaching and other material production and other units. And at that time, I started my work on language contact and convergence, a case study at the border area of Karnataka and Kerala. It was a very vast area. I didn't realize it at that time that it would be such a vast project, because first of its kind at that time from in that area. And I completed the project and submitted my thesis, and that was the first experience that I had. I had opportunity to have discussions with Dr. Pattanayak, Dr. Professor Annamalai. Then Professor C.H.K. Mishra was also there, Professor A.K. Srivastav, and others. So later on, I had to move on to Central Institute of Hindi on deputation, and then I was absorbed there. But still, I had interactions and connections, and with CIIL, we had so many times we were associated with so many projects and seminars and conferences. So that in the formative years, fresh after MA, I was in CIIL. So it was a stepping stone in my career, and my initial training and also initial entry into the field of linguistics happened in CIIL. So I am thankful to CIIL. I am so glad that it has grown from that stage into the present stage, but still not, we have lost so many things, I think. Some areas I don't know whether I think you can develop the socio-linguistics unit in the institute. And of course, we have to have staff. There are so many areas we can work in the multilingual context, multicultural context of India. So now at present, I am in Bangalore, but because of COVID situation, I am not able to visit CIIL. And I wish all the best to the present staff and the institute, and good to see you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Thomas. It was so nice hearing from you, recalling your association with this institute, and also providing ideas for developing this institute socio-linguistically. Thank you so much. And now I would like to request Professor Rajesh Sachdeva to express his views on the institute. Over to Professor Sachdeva.
I wanted to privilege myself and have the last word, but anyway, I'll have it midway through. I feel, first let me recollect a scene from the past. It's a foundation day. All of us are very enthusiastic. People are coming with their families to the institute. All of us are coming together. We are all going to have a grand party, a potluck together. So I have made my Kabuli cholas, which I'm very good at making. And I'm carrying a whole bucket of it. And there we go. All the families are getting together. The director himself is going to serve everybody. He's picking up and serving the peons, the other colleagues and everything. And that sense of camaraderie, that sense of family, that sense of being one, no institute will provide that kind of a scene. It was just a complete burying of rank. It was just feeling one in spirit. It was just being one. The whole family was one, and everybody looked at the head of the family, the director. He was the fountainhead of wisdom. He was the fountainhead of values. He was the one who was telling us. He anchored his position around multilingualism in this country on mother tongue. He made us all value what we had and all that. He also kept us enlightened about what was happening in the world outside. He wanted to build up each one of us into somebody special. He thought each of us has the potential to excel, and he wanted to provide that great opportunity for each of us to grow. And for that, he had his own plans in motion. But you must also examine CIIL in the idea of what the government was thinking in terms of overall idea of language planning in this country. You see, the government took decisions to set up institutes for English and foreign languages, for Hindi, for Sanskrit, and all Indian languages. But with the first function of the CIIL was to coordinate the activities of all these institutes too, and also work with the Anthropological Survey of India, the Registrars General of India, all state bodies. So CIIL was supposed to be the catalyst, getting people together, creating a sense of oneness, owning your problems together, collectively resolving this issue. It was an enduring idea of a diverse, harmonious India to be brought into being. And I think for that kind of a thing, there would be this opportunity. So there was this, sort of, in some sense, we say that he sort of foresaw the future. It was preparing for the future to come. So there was this, all of us, I had done my master's in linguistics from Pune University, and I had registered for a PhD program on bilingualism and come here. But suddenly I was amidst a mini India. There was people from there was a Sindhi, there's a Muslim, there's a Kashmiri, everybody from different parts of India were coming together. And not only that, there were different disciplines. There were sociologists, there were statisticians, there were folklorists, there were psychologists, there were educationists with reading specialization in that. And there was this there were people from technology background. There were specialists of Dravidian languages, there were specialists of Munda languages, there were people working on Tibeto-Burman, and the whole idea that we are going to work collectively. And it was a division of labor, but with a unified vision of we should share, come together, bring out a harmonious thing, and each of us will get ample opportunity to grow together with each other and all that. And for that, several pioneering events were set into motion. Right from the time of starting the first ever sociolinguistic workshop, getting people like Professor Gampas and Labov to come, about which Professor Ramakant Agnihotri in the morning mentioned, how it sort of was a watershed movement in the history of this country, how it led to the formation of the idea of understanding sociolinguistics and owning your problems. And in that thing it led to. He also was instrumental in getting the first ever Institute on Language Planning done here. Language planning was not a studied discipline, but Dr. Pattanayak brought together the best of the people in the field across the world. And they were here, and a month-long workshop was taking place with all the best of the minds across the world coming together, thinking together, building together. And somebody like Hansraj Dua, who I wish could be today here, but he's not, his entire work on language planning began after that entire workshop. So it became a watershed moment, and people began to understand. Even Uday Narayan Singh, our colleague, his work on language planning, he must owe it to the CIIL because it all began here. Then he would have something like international thing of semiotics. The best of the philosophers, the best of the semioticians, belonging to diverse schools from Canada, America, Europe, including London and all that. even including Indian Grammatical Tradition. All of them are coming together to inform us and bring us. And then all this, or you would get the entire academic school with Kenneth L. Pike coming and doing and all that. You see, there was vibrant culture, the best of the library, great opportunities, great colleagues, great camaraderie, and it had all the ingredients of a successful, vibrant institute in that. And so all of us were going to grow together and together. But then what happens is that in every organization, difficulties must set in. Problems must crop up. And some of those problems cannot get easily resolved as well. So I must talk about the inner struggle of the institute, the striving that we all were doing for, and our failings as well on that front. For instance, Sushila Thomas rightly recollects it. She was a research assistant. I joined as a research assistant. Rajesh Sachdeva was a research assistant. Or Rekha Sharma was a research assistant. Itiki was a research assistant. All of us were research assistants. We were fresh MAs with a year or two's experience, and we had just come in, and we were here. And also, we were the first people to go through the Union Public Service Commission to become from ad hoc to become this thing. And we had really high quality interview with people like Professor Pandit, who was the head of the department of Delhi University, and Masood Hussain Khan, who was the head of the department of Aligarh. Two eminent professors with the chair, Dr. Pattanayak. You were grilled in the interview for half an hour by the UPSC. And those of us, I was number 2 on the merit list as I emerged. And my other friend Jaipal was number 1. But we were in the sense, and Dr. Pattanayak was very proud of all of us. He said that my boys, my team has performed better than all the others when he said that. So I think that sense of pride and that rigor that we all went through and all that. But you see what happened subsequently when after people got confirmed and all that, we were not able to bring in a scheme of promotion of things. We of course got something like the UGC scales in the government, which was extremely unique. And how did the government department get UGC scales was something but Dr. Pattanayak with his charismatic appearance and his deep connections with the thing and his ability to convince people. He convinced the entire ministry that this is a place where I want to create the very best institute. So he brought together even UGC scales. But unfortunately, in the giving of the UGC scales, the research assistants were not able to accommodate themselves. They were not given the upgradation to become lecturers, as may have happened. But then a sense of misgiving grew. Gradually, the others became. And, the saddest part of it is that many of the research assistants have finally, I can recollect my friend Ranjit Singh Rangela, he died a research assistant. My friend Nana Chetki died a research assistant. My friend Alangayan died a research assistant. So the sense of coming up from that first ladder upwards was not. I was more fortunate because I went away after being the guy. I went out to join the Nagaland University, and then I was in Nehu and all those things. So I left out and came back. But the sense of belongingness was so strong that even while serving for 15 years in the Northeast, my heart was always in Mysore. I always wanted to come back and be in CIIL because it was here I felt that here was an opportunity for all of us to come together, because linguistics is a discipline which doesn't have too many takers. So it had to be done, and the opportunities in it are not that many. Whereas CIIL was to be the place which had to create those opportunities and bring together. And so when my second phase, when I had returned from the university, one saw from this that one was now sitting on a bigger chair, one was a professor, and later on one was going to be the director. So one saw many of those difficulties, and one was in a position to solve those problems. We were telling, even to get those positions that used to lie vacant for years and years and years. It is such a task getting those things, running to the UPSC, running to the ministry, running to the personnel department, getting meetings done and getting the clearance. It's not easy, sir. Working in the government, with the government, where they are not willing to give you those positions so easily, you have to work. To get even a single post filled up in those conditions is not easy. But we had to strive, and all that Tariq, of course, talks about joining in Mishra's time. But I'm sure that the groundwork for those positions falling was done by some of us, just as the groundwork for many of the schemes that have come in and are into operation, including all the work on endangered languages. We had a whole unit of tribal and languages. It was the place where we used to nurture ideas and go to the tribal communities. Dr. Pattanayak had that vision to send people to those far-off areas in Nagaland, Arunachal Pradesh, where people used to take 6 to 7 days to physically reach a place and then stay there for months. You see, I mean, the kind of work that has been done, you just can't appreciate the deep amount of the committed people that we were. So I think the CIIL deserved a much better deal, and even a much better future should await us. And I think the time has come for us to rework our thinking, rebuild on that confidence, rededicate ourselves to those ideals, and come back stronger on a bigger footing. And I think we must create a structure which will allow for opportunities to grow upwards, which will allow us to remain in touch with our discipline. An advantage that I found when I was in the university for 15 years, I mean, it was that I had the liberty to take the best of the courses, and I had no choice but to read every day. I could not walk into my historical linguistics class without reading all of my Hawke and Bynon and everybody. Teaching social linguistics, all the books that I had to read, whether it was Faisal or Hudson, everything, I had to read from first page till the last page. Every chapter of those was imprinted in my mind, and all that, all the handbooks of this thing and all that. I had to go and deliver in the class on a day-to-day basis. I had to prepare myself. Whereas in the CIIL, when I was there, I could have chosen not to read. You know, we did it for our work purpose, for our project purposes, but towards preparing a whole set of people with a new feature and all that. So in some sense, the kind of activity that we all did, could have been even more enriched. So I feel in times to come, the future that must await must draw on the strength of the past. It must draw on the camaraderie and the brotherhood that was built up of those old times. It must draw on the wisdom of those years. But simultaneously, it must look into the problems that confront us today. And we must approach and work for the welfare of one and all the languages, including all communities. I will bring to an end, and I'll recollect a few small things. Somebody like Professor Ram Dayal Munda, who was a very well-known person and was the Vice Chancellor of the Jharkhand University, and was one of the persons who was a spearhead of the Jharkhand movement and all that. When he came to CIIL, he told me, Rajesh, this is the only place in this country where the tribals are fully respected. This is like the Makkah for us. This is the place where we feel one. We don't feel we are tribal or this or that. You just treat us as like yourselves. We don't feel any caste or class intervention in this institute. We don't see any ethnicity or this thing like that. The sense of oneness that you people have created, a sense of respect for the others, is your legacy and all that. Or take somebody like you or Anant Murthy telling me, Rajesh, do you know, coming to CIIL, we used to get a stage fright. Because CIIL was the place of international recognition for us. To go and speak in CIIL was the biggest opportunity for us. That because they knew that stalwarts like Shivram Karan, Raja Rao, R. K. Narayan, even the great literatures, they had come to institute to pay homage, to be with us, and to feel that the work on Indian languages must grow together. The work on literature, the linguists, the interdisciplinary work. So I think there's a lot to be drawn from the past, but most of it, the spirit of treating people with equality. And then striving to create opportunities for everybody. I think it's extremely important that we must labor towards that vision where we can create opportunities for all so that fresh blood can be drawn. And the institute, which had 4 professors, 12 readers, and number of lecturers, 25 researchers, some 70, 75 linguists working at one time. Today there are we have been cut off. I know the situation there has to be how many permanent staff are there. I don't want to embarrass each other by knowing that, but we are not even 10% of what we were of 50 years back. And to put even the same 70 people together, you're going to take time. But by now we should have been 700. You see, given the kind of work that awaits this country, the kind of work that needs to be done, I think the idea is to think big, labor big, get resources and work. Otherwise, the Indian languages will remain underserved, underdone. We may make our portfolios, we may write here and there and get glorious certificates individually, but the country would not have gained if we do not collectively work together with other universities, with other departments, with other this thing to do it. And I think CIIL has that spirit. And CIIL has that dignity. It has that position where it can actually take the leadership in getting people together for collective language planning for the sake of a nation that respects all individuals in a very multilingual, harmonious India. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to speak today.
Thank you, Professor Sachdeva, for this wonderful recollection of the building of CIIL into a wonderful institution, and also expressing the optimism in which the CIIL can realize itself in future. I join you in expressing those concerns, and also I join you in the optimism that you have expressed. Yes, your recollections have always been full of potluck dinners and family-like get-togethers. I very fondly, very admirably look forward to such opportunities coming in future, and hopefully we will be having such things soon. You have always been part of our programs, and whenever we have required, you have extended your services. I cannot say anything except very heartfelt thanks, and we will definitely look forward to receiving more and more support from you in future. And now I would like to request Dr. K. Vasacharya, who has also joined us today in expressing his views in the program Reflections on CIIL. And before he begins, let me inform you all that Dr. Vasacharya has worked here as a research assistant, and he was in the chair of academic secretary for a very long time. And it was from him I took over as academic secretary, and his meticulous way of handling things, the way he has kept things very well organized, has helped me immensely. I pass on the mic to Dr. K. Vasacharya. Over to you, sir. Please unmute yourself, sir. You need to click on the mic button once. Yeah. No, one time you click, sir. Only one time, please click on the mic button. Yeah.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I'm very fortunate to work with beginning from Professor D.P. Pattanayak and Professor Annamalai, Professor V.N. Singh, and Professor A.K. Mishra, who are the regular directors. And also, I worked with in-charge directors like Professor A.K. Srivastava and Professor N. Ramaswamy, Professor Yekka, Professor Y.N. Kaul, and Professor Rajesh Sachdeva, and Professor S.N. Burman. Before my retirement, Professor Mishra was there, and I retired as a research assistant. I joined as a research assistant, and I retired as a research assistant. It's unfortunate with me, I was the last person to be recruited by the UPSC, and I'm the last person to retire in the cadre, and with me, the entire cadre has, okay, I should not say, it's a dying cadre like that, but it happened really, as Professor Rajesh Sachdeva rightly said about this is the main drawback. Maybe Professor Pattanayak worked hard to get sanctioned 301 posts. I know, we were also there when work study group came, and then we used to put all our efforts from morning 9:15 to evening 5:30, what work we are doing, and doubleizing our single work. So like that, we were, whenever there is a work study group comes, and we used to put all our efforts to get sanctioned many posts. I think during his time, all the posts were sanctioned, and unfortunately, many of them could not be filled. and then subsequently it takes a lot of time, and we could not show much, what we can say, achievement, because the language research is more required by the staff that was already visualized by Professor Pattanayak ji. During the time, we have even then there are so many languages were collected. Data was there, but it was not analyzed and kept in the archives, and it was not analyzed, so that it is difficult to get back now. I think there's data because of lack of resources. These things happened. It was unfortunate thing. I feel very bad about that. We could not able to get things done and then worked together like that. And we put effort to bring back many posts to be filled, but we could able to achieve only a percentage, small percentage of people. Now we can see, and they are working hard. I think the pressure will be there for less people. I know, we remember at that time we were only 4 people working with Professor Mishra, and we shared a lot of burden on that. So I know the burden of the workload with a few people. I hope the present director will take initiative to fill all the posts, and then to bring back the vision of the Professor Pattanayak ji. And there are many things. We worked for mainly for material production unit. We bring out all the research results outcome in a publication form. And we bring out nearly 600 and odd publications as a outcome of the results of our own colleagues in CIIL and other universities. Also, we brought out many publications. That was happened in my period. Before that, my senior colleague was there, Professor Bharat, HLN Bharati. I was fortunate enough to work with many senior people like Professor Perumal, Professor Yakka, Professor Annamalai. We learned a lot from them, how to work as a unit, as a team like that. With this, a few words, I will thank the CIIL authorities for giving me this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Vasacharya. In very small time, you have agreed to be part of this program. At a very short notice, you agreed, and you have raised a very important issue. This is something that the institute has suffered for a very long time, and this is something that the new recruitment rules or the new recruitments in future would definitely like to have a change in. And I very well know that when the committee was working on the recruitment rules changes in 2016, you were also part of that, and we have put in good efforts. We have put in very good efforts that so that this kind of experience does not repeat with anyone in future. And we hope that the ministry would and the DOPT would approve our proposals, and in future when the recruitments happen, such anomalies do not exist, and we have a very nice environment. I see that Dr. Kalika Mehta has raised her hand, and I would like to pass on the opportunity to Dr. Kalika Mehta, who has served as the lecturer of Marathi in Pune, and she has also held the position of the principal WRLC Pune, principal NRLC Patiala, and it was from her I took over at NRLC Patiala. So without a delay, over to Dr. Kalika Mehta. Madam, please go ahead.
Good afternoon. Really, I'm very happy to see all of you after many years. It's my privilege and honor to participate in today's Foundation Day event. And I'm thankful to the authorities at CIIL for extending the opportunity to me. I wish every success to the Institute and celebrations on this occasion. Can I turn off my video? I have some internet issue. Huh?
Yes, ma'am. As per your convenience, please go ahead.
Yeah. CIIL has had a major contribution in the academic growth of all of I will share my presentation also. Just a minute. Give me a minute. I'm sharing PPT. Hello, is it visible?
Very much.
Okay, thank you. CIIL has had a major contribution in the academic growth of all of us. We have seen the dedication of Professor Pattanayak, Professor Annamalai, Professor O.N. Kaul, Professor UN Singh, Professor Sachdeva, Professor Rajeshri, Dr. Shamla Kumari, and Dr. Vijaya Chitnis, and many others who took CIIL to its utmost heights. This institute was known for internationally reputed linguists and several language-related activities. So I consider myself fortunate to get the opportunity of being part of CIIL RLC for almost 35 years. Today's program is about reflection on CIIL. Actually, there were many discussions and workshops held on this topic. So the points I'm going to share are definitely discussed before. As I have worked in RLC, I will represent here RLCs which are inseparable from CIIL. It was in 1982 that I joined CIIL. I was appointed as a Marathi lecturer in WRLC and I retired as a principal in charge in 2017. I held this post exactly for 10 years. The RLCs have always been the backbone of CIIL. Those were the days when RLCs had permanent faculty who were all engaged in second language teaching as well as material production. Looking back, I really wonder at the enormous amount of material that we all produced to cater to the different requirements and the different needs of the trainees. But just now, Professor Sachdeva said, there are always constraints when we run an institute. Therefore, when I became the principal in charge, I thought it will be quite smooth for me to run the center. But I was wrong because by that time, the centers had changed a lot. They were both positive and negative changes. The change which affected us the most was the vacancies. One by one, the permanent faculty was getting retired, but the post was hardly filled, whatever the reason might be. I'm sharing this from my experience. Along with the in charge of WRLC, I also had to handle NRLC at Patiala for about 4 years. I used to face many difficulties because both the academic faculty and administrative staff had no one to look up to. There was no one to give guidance and directions to their work. I used to be there only for a week periodically because I also had my duties at WRLC. The same holds true for the other teaching faculty also. So I believe that first of all, there should be a regular principal in each regional language center. Unless there is a regular principal to look into the day-to-day matters of the center, it's very difficult to manage and find out the solutions to any concrete problem which arises. Same holds true with the other teaching faculty. Whenever there was a vacancy, the faculty used to be appointed on a temporary, or you can say daily basis. That is 1,000 rupees per day. That means if a person could not attend for a day, his daily payment was cut. It was simply ridiculous. Daily wage earners, in spite of their qualifications. I still fail to understand why a premier institute like CIIL fails to relieve them from such anxiety of temporary job. It's needless to say that this temporary faculty had no motivation to give their best. Selecting guest lecturers also affect material production also, which is one of the basic activity of every center. Therefore, if at all we have to appoint the guest lecturers for some reasons, we should at least try to appoint a person with a linguistics background or arrange vigorous training for them. Because I can share my personal experiences. The guest lecturers who were from literature background, literally I used to take their classes from 9 to 10, and at 10 o'clock then I used to send them to the class. And I used to teach them transitive, intransitive verbs also. I have demonstrated in the class how to do pattern introduction. I don't claim that I never needed training. We also learned from our seniors, and our seniors were there to help us. But still, I feel that if at all we have to appoint the guest lecturers for some reasons, we should at least try to appoint a person with a linguistics background, or we should arrange to give them vigorous training in linguistics. Because we need training for material production also. As I said earlier, in many centers, our previous faculty has prepared a lot of good teaching material. Our 3 course books are example. But unfortunately, in case of many languages, these 3 courses are also not available. Those which are out of print have not been reprinted, so they cannot be used by anybody. The case of script books, language laboratory material, history of literature is still worse. The immediate step will be, if we want to modify this situation, we should first of all revise the material and reprint it. In fact, this is the period of online process, especially due to pandemic. CIIL should focus on this need of the day. So our options are: one way out, to convert and modify the existing classroom material to suit the purpose of online classes. For that, experts' guidance should be taken because the medium would be altogether different. At present, our temporary teaching staff has no work and no earning. They may be trained in the technology by the experts who are both technically sound and also in language field. Once the online classes start, evaluation and assessment will also be online. Therefore, a new procedure has to be evolved on the basis of already existing online courses. We had many units such as social linguistics, psycholinguistics, reading unit, which are now not working, maybe due to lack of faculty. But the research done in these units were proved to be complementary for our language teaching. So these units can be reactivated and their outcome can be utilized for the betterment of RACs. It is my experience that RLCs are hardly aware of the ongoing activities in CIIL. Actually, they should be kept in a loop of all the CIIL activities so that they don't get the feeling of being neglected and not being considered as a part of CIIL. and and this leads to duplicating the efforts. I would also like to draw your attention to one more point. There used to be wastage of government money and energy in duplicating the same activities and workshops in both CIIL and RLCs. When the language related projects are taken up, RLC's teaching faculty can be given opportunity to participate and grow through it. Such participation will create in them a sense of belonging to the Central Institute. Even centers do not know about the achievements of LDCIL, NTS, NTM. I remember that the temporary faculty, means our guest lecturers, were not even allowed to participate in the seminars unless they were ready to lose their payment, one-day payment. This always contradicts our efforts to help their growth. Personally, I used to help them grow in this regard in my own way. The main aim of RLCs has been second language teaching. We also used to take 10 days orientation for mother tongue teachers in language teaching. However, it is found that it was never sufficient. Therefore, I believe that the training to mother tongue teachers also may be taken up by CIIL, and that as a regular program, and this program can be conducted by RLCs. One more point to worry us, the less number of trainees. This may have many reasons, but it is certainly a waste of whole infrastructure, manpower, money, and buildings of RLCs. One way out would be CIIL ties up with different state governments with the help of central government. When I was working in WRLC, we used to conduct the short need-based courses for such as bank officers, IS officers, the various groups. Whenever those groups approached, I would suggest that CIIL should take initiative and ties up with different institutes who may need it. Actually, nowadays, second language or foreign language teaching has got a wide scope. Language teaching methods evolved in RLCs were amazing. It's my experience of teaching in WRLC which has opened doors of many opportunities for me. Nowadays, I take courses for IS officers, for American students, and happy to share that with you that these courses are very much appreciated. I owe this credit to my long inning in WRLC. We all know that we all have to help regain CIIL's past glory. We hope that CIIL will be able to overcome all these constraints. This is possible when its backbone RLCs are developed efficiently and effectively. Help of modern technology measures can be taken up, keeping pace with the current time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, madam. It was very elaborate, and I'm very sure this would guide us in planning for future, and your concerns will be met with. All these things would help us devise policies for the institute, which would be beneficial in the larger interest. And now it is my pleasure to invite Professor D.P. Pattanayak to express his views, and we would be interested to know from him what he intended to do during his time, things that he could do, things that he could not do, and how he sees the institute today, and how he would like it to grow in future. Over to
Dr. Tariq Khan.
Yes.
I want to raise this issue with Professor Pattanayak. Pattanayak, sir, please imagine that you are 60 years younger, or at least 50 years younger. Imagine if you were 50 years younger, what would you have done to CIIL? Had you been the director of CIIL, what would you have done under the circumstances that exist today? Your dreams and vision of being 50 years younger.
Over to Professor Pattanayak. So you need to unmute yourself. Please unmute yourself first. You need to click on the mic button once. I think Professor Pattanayak will take some assistance. In the meantime, let me remind that we also have Professor K.S. Nagaraj, Professor Perumal Swami, and Dr. G. Prabhakar has joined us. Professor Umar has joined us. I forgot to welcome them. So I extend a welcome to both of them now. After Professor Pattanayak, we will listen to Professor K.S. Nagaraj and Professor Perumal Swami, after which we will pass on the session.
In the meanwhile,
Yes, Narayan.
in the meanwhile, you can ask Pawan to play UN Singh's video.
Pawan, if you can, please go ahead.
Sorry to intervene. Dr. Patnaik's mic is on because he will again lose his mic.
Yes,
Let him speak.
Oh, yes.
Hello.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I am here for the whole program. I was enjoying the whole show. At the end, I would like to also speak as a CIIL alumni student.
You see, I cannot go back 50 years. I agree with what Rajesh was speaking, that the beginning was working together as a team, as a family, and as people who wanted to really work together. Under the present context, things are changing so much that it is very difficult. You can start, don't try to do everything together. Try to establish priorities. And while establishing priority, take any one and try to relate it to your whole field. Proceed. Like, let us say, let's take any one. Sociolinguistics are you preparing materials. Preparing materials, you will have to decide what kind of material to prepare, for whom. Say, for example, I have been trying to persuade people to prepare materials for special purposes. I had myself prepared Odia material, I remember. Odia material, I prepared a book called Conversational Odia, which was used by the Americans, the Germans, the British, etc. At the same time, I prepared a book for the Peace Corps volunteers, a 12-week course where they would study Odia along with agriculture. Similarly, I prepared a course book for various other kinds of people. So, you see, if you take any one, try to relate it to all the fields that we are discussing here. Then only let us say field work. Field work is something about which there is nothing almost excepting one or two books. There are on which Abi has written something and somebody else. Except there is nothing almost available. So field work is one area where we have to bring our experience together and bring out a volume on field work. What is field work? How to relate field work? All kinds of things, etc. So whatever you take, try to relate it to various other fields. People are talking about interdisciplinary. They don't understand discipline. They talk about interdisciplinarity. We are talking about intercultural. But interdisciplinary or intercultural, whatever you say, you have to relate everything to various other disciplines. Let us take language teaching. Language teaching has gone so much in psycholinguistics, in sociolinguistics, in computational linguistics, in artificial intelligence, various other things, so that unless you relate linguistics into all these areas, nothing can be done. So one of the things that I was asked, what would I plan to do? Present context, I will determine, I'll see what are the priorities of the government, because it's a department of the government. Let us say that it continues to be a department. Forget about, or it will come by an institution. Whatever be the institution, what are the priorities of the government? The government has no priorities. If the government has priority about planning, they should do something which should relate to the ministry. So, for example, the women, we're talking about women's empowerment. We don't have any book on women's language. Yeah. So, we should have a book on what is skill. We don't have a book about language skill. What is skill? So, we can relate it to various areas. Whatever are the priorities, you can take them and try to relate them to various areas. That is how we can persuade the government that it is relevant to all the ministries, to all the programs, because that is what the CIIL is for. It is supposed to do things which relate to various areas of study. Therefore, I think what is more important is to determine priorities and relate those priorities to the larger field of action. That is, I think, would be my only answer at this point.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. Wonderful. Yeah.
May I now request my technical support team to play Professor Yuan Singh's recorded video. I request Pawan Raj. Can you play the video now?
Unmute.
There's no audio in this. Just get the audio on route.
Pawan, can you again check it? We are not able to hear anything. I request the technical team to examine the video file again and work on the audio aspect of it. Can you stop presenting and work on it? In the meantime, let me pass on to Professor K.S. Nagaraj. Professor K.S. Nagaraj has been here in different capacities, and he has supported us during his service and also after it as research assistant in past, and then he has been associated with this institute in various capacities and on various counts as and when we have sought his advice on different matters. Whenever we have requested him for his services, he has always joined us and given us his time and advices on various occasions. And his work, especially on Austroasiatic and Nihali, are of worthy of note. So I request Professor K.S. Nagaraj to express his views. Sir, over to you, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. This is a very pleasant occasion, 53rd Foundation Day of CIIL. This Foundation Day takes back one to, a lot of memories. Even in Deccan College, we used to have Foundation Day. That is August 17th as a Foundation Day. When we look at the great institutions, how linguistics started here, Deccan College, CIIL, Annamalai, Usmania, Delhi, there's a great flourish in the beginning, particularly 1970s. And it's so saddening, depressing that everywhere it started declining in the 80s. And it has reached almost another again. What we see today is only some sort of survival attempts. In fact, Rajesh, Avdesh, and others have said very well about CIIL, and I don't want to go back to it, though I would like to. In fact, Tariq himself mentioned that I worked here in the initial stages for 5 years and was fortunate to go back to my alma mater, the college. Then again, I had a good opportunity to back in CIIL. Always I have a soft corner, a very longlingness to CIIL. I don't know why. So always I mourn when something negative happens here. I just hope that CIIL comes back with force and rejuvenates itself with ideas, with a lot of scholars entering and building it up and making it a second golden era as it was during Pattanayak's time. I hope that becomes possible in the coming days. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for a very brief and very clear view on how we can move further. Now, I would like to request Professor P. Perumal Swami to express his views. Professor Perumal Swami has served this institute as Professor cum Deputy Director, and he has retired on superannuation only recently. I am very sure you all are aware of him. He is a wonderful scholar whose work in the area of social linguistics has taken a setback after his retirement, and I wish that he continues to work on the topics that he has been thinking for a very long time. I pass on the mic to Professor Perumal Swami.
Good afternoon, professors, my senior teachers, and staff members of Central Institute of Indian Languages. And I wish on this 53rd Foundation Day celebrations of CIIL with the whole family, as Professor Rajesh Sachdeva mentioned, although they were physically present on that occasion with all their family members, virtually under the leadership of Professor Venkatesh Murthy today. It's a great pleasure to be associated with any event of CIIL. It is just a recall of when I was a student of linguistics. The Central Institute of Indian Languages was our Semeco or Rome, or it's a karma bhumi of linguistic students, and the scholars who were working in Central Institute of Indian Languages, they played a role model for almost all the languages, almost all for all the linguistic students. When we were in the department, it's our pleasure to meet always the Central Institute of Indian Languages staff in either one training program or another training program in such a way that they encouraged us to continue this discipline in future as a career. So they were the motivators earlier when we were the students. And as Professor Rajesh Sachdeva mentioned, that this institute was, when it was established for the development of Indian languages, they were there in all the nooks and corners of India to collect the data, and they brought out as either in the primers or materials, text materials for or learning materials like this. And we were introduced by this kind of work when we were the students, and hence they automatically stood as role models for us. And as Professor Rajesh Mishra pointed out, the transition took place when CIIL was giving much importance for the description of languages, language teaching, and sociolinguistic surveys, as mentioned by Professor Sushila Thomas. A lot of works have come in 1980s, all these works, and later on slowly over to technology side as well. And apart from these, still I am remembering that the institute organized by Professor Sachdeva, in which myself and my colleague, we attended for historical linguistics by Professor Professor Hawk. And such valuable seminars, international workshops are conducted, and all the principles and practices in linguistics were taught by our Indian students by this premier institute. And if we go through the past, that the works were still, they are the outstanding contributions of the institute. Still it is referred everywhere. And not only that, as envisioned by our founder director and the following professors, that in policy making decisions, our institute played a very important role. That in almost all the meetings, Central Institute of Indian Languages Director will be one of the decision making body. He will be present. So all the policy decisions or policy implementations, even for national education policy also, we are the facilitators for providing such an opportunity. Unfortunately, it may be the last minute, it may not be our full-fledged participation, but thoroughly, right from the day one onwards, our institute played a very important role. And when I joined here, I think after my 25 years of service in the Ministry of Home Affairs, when I joined here, I was given as a in charge for very important like data digitization and dissemination unit, including Baravani, that was recently established, and educational technology unit, which had taken for projects like language teaching in through correspondence mode and online language teaching. Similarly, one project, Mother Tongue Survey of India, in which our Central Institute of Indian Languages had a collaboration with Ministry of Home Affairs, Office of the Registrar General India, Language Division. And also I was given the charge of language policy and planning and sociolinguistics. And then apart from this grant in aid as well. My experience is although I served only for 4 years in the CIIL, but I understood that it has to play a very important role in future as well. Language, sociolinguistic surveys are very important. Such a country that multilingual and multicultural sector plays a vital role, and we have to bring a thorough survey on various languages spoken in individuals, each state, as well as their role of nature in each state, whether it is minority or it is in education. And we have a discussion in the forum is to emphasize the same. In education, what are the languages, role of importance in education? It should be recorded. But unfortunately, census was that one. But in future, I think at least our institute has to take up these surveys and national education policy plays a vital role in primary education, and our director also knows that. And the minor languages now, a lot of minor languages they have come up in primary level. It should be added for education, and for that preparation material production. What we earlier Professor D.P. Pattanayak sir started that material production division when it was very active. Same thing, it should be activated for minor and border languages. In that way, we are helping the ministry establishing the text for primary education. So that will be our role, that we have to, unless and otherwise, in collaboration with the linguist and education, language education people, it cannot be successful. So for this also, it plays a vital role. So feature, technology also that will play an important role. Already our linguistic data consortium, it established, and there also our linguist role is very important, and our students also requires job, and they should be trained with an interaction between industry and this technology. It should be there. So I think now the youngsters, they have come up. I feel that I am the bridging gap between the past, like Rajesh, where just Professor A.K. Mishra left. After that, I was the tail end. So from Rajesh Sachdeva, if we place the head, then the body will be A.K. Mishra's this period, and I'll be the tail end. I hope that the next will now take up Central Institute of Indian Language under the leadership of Professor Venkatesh Murthy, that in a new shape, incorporating almost all these responsibilities and the past, I think they will blend and take into further heights, I hope, and I wish all of them to get success. And on this occasion, it is a very pleasure to be with all the senior. I'm very happy that all my, in one way or other way, connected. Long back, I met Professor Kalika Mehta and Rajesh Sachdeva sir also. We met except technical advisory committee meeting, and here in CIIL, we met very rarely, and Professor Thomas as well, and my teacher, Dr. Professor Nagaraj as well. This is an opportunity to meet all of you, and I'm very thankful to giving this wonderful opportunity for the organizers. Thank you very much, sir, and thank you to all of you.
Thank you, Professor Perumal Swami. It was wonderful listening to you again at a gap of nearly 2 months, and you have good ideas. I'm sure you're working on those pragmatics and sociolinguistics ideas, and we'll continue to benefit from that in future too. At this point of time, I'll request the permission of Professor Venkatesh Murthy, Director CIIL, to read out what Professor Jograj has sent to us as an email, and he wants it to be read out during this program. So I'm reading Professor Jograj's reflections on CIIL Mysore. And before that, let me also inform you all that Professor Jograj has served the UTRC Solan. He has served the regional center at Patiala and UTRC Lucknow. So I'm just reading out what he has written. First of all, I would like to thank the authorities of CIIL Mysore who have allowed me to throw light on the academic activities of RLCs of the Institute on the 53rd anniversary of the CIIL. I hereby submit my observations, views, suggestions, which I have experienced during 22 years of service as a principal as well as faculty of 3 major centers, namely UTRC Solan, NRLC Patiala, and UTRC Lucknow. If the Ministry of Education, Government of India, as well as the CIIL is serious about the functioning of the RLCs, in this regard, I am to say that all the posts lying vacant must be first filled up that is the post of principals, faculty, and administrative staff of the institute and RLCs, because without the filling up of the above said posts, it is not feasible to revive and improve all the academic activities of the regional centers and institute. Necessary infrastructure may be ensured for the proper establishment of the RLCs. The authorities of the Ministry of Education and CIIL must highlight the schemes of the academic programs of the RLCs with the coordination of principals, faculty of the RLCs to win the confidence of all the state authorities of the country. The aims and objectives of the RLCs may be revised as per the current requirements of second language teaching of different states, because the RLCs enjoy high esteem and reputation, which must be maintained in schools, colleges, universities, and various language institutions of the country. Whenever any fresh permanent recruits or contractual staff joins the institute, they must go through aims, objectives, and schemes of the institute as well as RLCs. Second language teaching must be continued for teachers, scholars, and students. Refresher courses for second language teaching, orientation courses for mother tongue teaching, first language teaching must be continued along with the revision of schemes and programs. A proper budget required by the center may be given to make all the programs successful. The academic services of the retired officers and the faculty of the institute and RLCs must be utilized if available. National integration camp and language environment tours are highly valuable, keeping in view the natural diversity and national integration. Apart from the above, there is felt an urgent necessity for the coordination of all the commissions of the center and states so that the services of CIIL and RLCs can be fully utilized. Short-term courses for the employees relating to bank, police, judiciary, and revenue should be arranged for the specific language training as per the requirement of different states. Last but not least, it may be stressed that the coordination of all the centers of RLCs must be ensured concerning all the academic activities as envisaged in the entire setup. These are words from Dr. Jograj, who retired from UTRC Solan in July 2017. I'm sure this is going to help us in planning for future. And now there are two options before us. One is we can play the video that was pending. If that works, else I would pass on the opportunity to Professor Umarani, who has opted to be the last speaker for the academic part of this program. Over to the technical team first, and then to Professor Umarani. Thank you.
We are also going to listen to non-academic, I hope, because we are not here to dominate anybody.
The second part of the program has participants from administrative and support staff.
Yes. So, Yati Raju?
No, Narayanji, please wait. We are waiting for the technical team to play the video if they can. Otherwise, Professor Umarani will speak, and then we will pass on to the second part of the program. Please wait.
Okay. Pawan, tell me if you cannot, then I'll play it here.
Narayan, if you can, you do it from here because I already tried thrice. You can do it from your
side. Fine. Do it from here. I'll present from here. Are you able to see my screen now?
Yeah. Yes, we can.
I'm quite happy that me to ruminate about what my dreams were and what I wanted to do. Activities and academic changing of environment. Now, when I joined, as you all know, that of linguist and right. Point that I wanted to make in all our activities is that they're not really either or. You cannot be either a creative writer. It can be both. As it exists outside the institute. People, some who are purely language lovers, who are Puritans, who are very great grammarians, and there are some others who are not really waiting from the niceties of the rules, but are engaged in creativity, selling and writing. All these kinds of people are absolutely essential. And it was the way of fathers of CIIL institutions, the BD Deshmukh, to others. These two streams of thought, things always wished institute, which is why we brought in large number of creative writers, painters, musicians, philosophers on our stage to talk to linguists. Understand that outside the four walls of linguistics, there is a humor of academia to discover, because we are all aware of committed mistakes and have contributed significantly. William Nagaraj is one example. And in India, the tradition has always been so the poet linguists like particularly like a minute ago. Second point I wanted to is in terms of what we have done for 2 years. Digital. And for that, digitization of the data collected by this institute or being collected by the institute, I thought was very crucial. Important activity but we should emphasize on. So documentation and digitization, I think, is very crucial. Key to future, because what we've done on field notes is not something which will stay for long for us to check and double check time in different kind of dialectal backgrounds. So I think it's essential that we need to have a very strong electronic presence. Yeah. So, which is my online courses, which is my, various projects like the third thing I want to do is the fastest growing
We can't listen. We can't hear now. I think ever since Narayan Chaudhary muted himself, he's muted Uday Narayan in the process.
Major actors, major directors, screenplay writers, and major players in filmmaking. Through Asham and Dakini, we taught Mom shooting and did very well. 700 plus very significant documentaries were prepared, but it stopped somewhere in the middle. I think that's something which is absolutely essential for the institute to do. Dialogues which had between philosophers and linguists. Similar dialogues perhaps would be essential practitioners of other disciplines and linguistics. So this kind of dialogues we had started, and I wish this is something we would have taken up in a greater speed and would have contributed much more. The next thing is about the publication. Our publication quality and our publication design, innovative. They were great in content, but not necessarily the best in form. So I think that is something that I pay attention to and should be something we should pay attention to. The simplest to Indian languages should become publishing houses as well for linguistics. So good journals like Translation Today, publications. So this is the other point I think which I would like to mention very briefly is the involving people from all over the world. Now this is still possible to do, and it is in fact possible to do in a better way because of the technology development. Google Meet, on Zoom, so many other technologies are available in Microsoft Teams today with practically no cost of traveling and not much hassles. But during our time, highly developed, and therefore there was more of face-to-face communication, face-to-face conferences, seminars. This is something which we tried doing, bringing in international scholars to so listen to them, see what they're doing, either emulate them or reject them, go further, go ahead in different direction, whichever way. We need to learn from what others are doing. So this is very important. The last point that I wanted to make was about the neglect that in general we have shown to the language teaching, 3-language formula language teaching under the RLC program. I think that is something which were very important that we thought and was like this, that initially we would start with school teachers, then we will involve the youth, researchers, young people who are studying, students, and then we will involve the interested, community people who wish to be engaged in language teaching activities and spreading the word. But somehow the RLC is.
So this is the end of the video. I mean, it is abruptly ended, but that was almost the last line. Last line, Tariq can say.
Thank you, Narayan. Professor Yuan Singh had also informed me that there was some problem at the end. For some 4 words remain deleted. So now I request Professor Umarani to speak a few words before we move to the second part of the program. Over to Professor Umarani, please.
Yes. Good evening, my dear family members. At this moment, I am just recollecting my memories back to 1992. I am just going to share a few of my thoughts with you. The CIL then and the CIL now. I was a simple girl from Coimbatore with absolutely no experience on working on any Indian language besides Tamil. Throughout my life, I studied in one, so even my Tamil knowledge at that time was only knowing Tamil as a subject. But I was motivated and sent to CIL by my teacher, Professor K. Karunakaran from Bharatiya University. He said, birds should fly, and here's a great institution, you must go. And I came here, and I was very lucky enough to find Professor K.S. Rajeshri, who actually I took her as my supervisor. It's the reverse. I liked her and I approached her. People then were very warm. So the moment I approached her and I said, I want to work here with you on a PhD, she said, fine. But she said, I said, I know nothing, only Tamil. But she says, I do not know Tamil. I neither know Tamil nor computational linguistics. And that's what I wanted to do. Like Professor Annamalai was the director. He encouraged me and he said, Rashri is a very sweet person. You enroll with her for your PhD. I will also help you with the Tamil syntax part. And that's how the journey began. My journey began in CIL. And then I worked on a theory, lexical functional grammar. We did not have a single teacher in India, but it was CIL who motivated me and encouraged me and provided me with all the facilities. Number one, the excellent library. And number two, great scholars from Professor Pattanayak. He had retired by then, but I met him once, just like that, in a corridor. It was an old building. And he came and asked, who are you? What are you? And he also said, any help, you can come home. So he had invited me along with the CIL staff in those days to his house. And I was amazed with the collection of books he had. I really don't know whether he still has all the books or he donated most of them. But I used to even use his library also. But people like Professor Pattanayak, Professor Annamalai, Dr. Rajeshri, and at this moment, I recall and I pay my tribute to Professor Omkar Nath Kaul, who was also my mentor. Imagine a young girl who knew nothing about other languages, ended up working with Professor Omkar Kaul on Kashmiri for 2 full years. I had never worked on any other language, but then people showered me with affection, showed me a different world of linguistics, and encouraged me to work on so many other languages. I remember the discussion clubs. We used to have the discussion clubs in the old committee room. Like Rekha Sharma used to be one of the coordinators. I had given talks even on that, just as a student. And CIL sent me to Sanskrit Academy even before I completed my PhD, to Professor Tatachari and others. I had delivered a talk on behalf of CIL, but not as a professor like I am now, just like a student, P. Umarani. That's how I used to be called those days. So just P. Umarani and PhD bar. Those days people used to write like that. So CIL actually was the gateway for my career. And since I stayed in a hostel, this whole family, they took me as their own daughter. Every other Saturday, I used to be in someone's house for dinner or lunch, like Professor Rajshri, Jaram, Devki, Rangila. I cannot forget all these people. Giridhar, Sarachandran Nair. I used to have a lot of discussions with Rangila. My legs used to ache, but he would say, you're very young, you can stand. Because he would give me lots and lots of advice from minimalism to maximalism of Chomsky's, he would say. So we had lots of discussions. I learned a lot. From CIL, I could go to Belgium only because of my training here, only because of being a student and being groomed by all of you. Like Professor Rajesh Sachdeva, so many of them used to visit CIL. He was not here when I was a student, but there are so many people, I cannot name everyone, but each and every one of you have showered a lot of love on me. My point here is, that was the CIL then. And also, I cannot forget, CIL then had only one computer. After we moved to 1994, just before the Silver Jubilee, we moved to this building. And the current LDCL room, those days, was the DOE project room. Professor Ekka was heading it. Jaram was officer in charge, and we had Ganeshan. So with this trio, I also used to work on corpus linguistics, computational linguistics, quantitative linguistics, and so on and so forth. Had only one computer, they had only one Google account, and then people started learning how to create Hotmail accounts, but only one computer where you have to queue up to go and check your mails. The beauty of CIL was there was no difference between deputy directors and Umar and EP. If I am in line now, if I was in the queue or as number 3, I get the chance, not even Professor Omkar Nath call. So it was like that. So the person who goes there and waits there used to get the chance to use the email. And people from CIL encouraged me and sent me to Indian Institute of Science, there, which had supercomputers those days. Since CIL did not have the facility, I was sent there, and I used to travel from Mysore to Bangalore only to utilize the supercomputer facility. And the directors, like Professor Annamalai, was helping a lot to do all those communications between the two institutions, and we could do a lot. So what I was trying to tell here is now what is happening. See, a person like me who came from Coimbatore could go to Belgium, United States, NEHU, and the love for CIL has brought me back to CIL in a different capacity. But now, with all these facilities, with all super technologies and better facilities and all sorts of technology advancements, why are we not able to give the same to the young students of India, the linguists? Why are we not able to encourage them? Why is there a barrier? Why can't students just come to CIL like how I used to come? And why can't we train them in different aspects of linguistics and also show them for them to expand their career? That's one thing we need to think about. CIL's role is not just doing the schemes and projects, but also to cater to the needs of the young linguists of this country. So it's our responsibility. We are doing workshops, we are taking different conferences, seminars, but it is also our duty to the academic home for all the future young budding linguists. I have so much to share, but I just wanted to stop here because we do have the second part of the event. But once again, I take this opportunity to thank every one of you who adopted me as your daughter and showered me with love. Thank you so much. I love my CIL.
Thank you, madam, for this wonderful recollection. And now it is time that we move on to the second part of the program. As I have mentioned before, we are standing, sitting, or floating on the shoulders of giants, and that is how CIL has been the glory that it is. But then all these achievements, all this environment that we are talking about, that we are remembering with nostalgia, has been possible with the relentless support of the support staff, the administrative staff of the institute, and their contribution is also immense. So to listen to what they had envisioned, how they had planned the institute, how they would like to see it to grow, I request Dr. Narayan Chaudhary to take over from now and then moderate a session where the administrative and support staff of the institute would be reflecting upon CIL. Over to Dr. Narayan Chaudhary, please.
Thank you, Dr. Tariq. So we come to the second and the last session of the day. Feedbacks and views of the support and administrative staff who have been associated with CIL for a long time, and they know much better than we who are very young people. Particularly, if you ask me, I may not know even many of them. I can see Sudarshan Murli sir, N.V. Bhatia sir, but I don't know them. So Yatiraju is also with us. I will request him to please introduce all the people who are present here, and then we will take each of them one by one.
Good evening, sir. Now Rangarajan will speak. Rangarajan is our ex-office superintendent. He will speak, sir. Thank you.
He's here. Rangarajan sir is here. So he has come down to CIIL.
No, he's there in.
He's at his home.
That Sudarshan Murli one is him. It's Rangarajan.
Oh,
Rangarajan.
Rangarajan ಬಂದಿದ್ದಾರಾ ಯತಿರಾಜ್?
ಬಂದಿದ್ದಾರೆ madam.
Sorry, sir.
ಬಂದಿದ್ದಾರೆ.
He is there under the Sudarshan Murli. We are seeing a person.
Good evening. Good evening. Nagaraja speaking.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Good
We can hear
evening.
you.
Congratulations to all the staff members of the institute who are organizing this type of institute day. I am very privileged to talk today. You have given an opportunity to talk few words. With my experience, I want to tell few things to the institution.